Okay. Now I'm gonna grab my oil pump. Well, hold on, let's put the timing on first because that's the way you should do it.
Sam's Garage, presented by HEMI. Coming up on this episode of Sam's Garage, Sam and the Lokar team install a new steering wheel and window crank handles in the 68 Chevelle. Sam and Doug continue working on the back half of the new frame for the 57 Thunderbird. Sam installs a new front bumper and billet grille on the Chevy C10 truck. Then Sam rebuilds the bottom end of his HEMI Gen 3 engine. The guys from Lokar help Sam install a new steering wheel and window crank handles in the 68 Chevelle. The Chevelle already has an upgraded steering hub, so installing the new wheel will be straightforward, while the new crank handles will provide that perfect interior accent.
All right, let's add some serious flair to the interior with the window cranks and the steering wheel. What do we got?
Well, we wanted to upgrade the quality and the comfort of the steering wheel. So we've got genuine leather, high quality wrapped stainless steel steering wheel. This is a Corvette 6-bolt pattern, so it's a normal, common pattern. This one already has a hub on it, for example, so we're not even gonna have to change it, save a little bit of money, and we're not trying to overdo it. So this black kind of goes away. We offer them in polished black. We're even gonna be able to reuse this factory horn button and the bracket and everything. So it's a real simple swap, and you can see this is a more comfortable, thick grip. Yeah. This has got the old school thin. We do offer them also in a 15-inch with a thin grip like we did in the Buick.
Right.
But Dad likes to have that comfort, you know, the bigger.
That's a nice
bigger
new
wheel.
modern look right there.
Yeah. So it's a simple swap. We'll take the hardware off, we'll put this on, put the hardware back in, clip it in, and it's just an instant comfort and quality upgrade. And with power steering, this is not going to be an issue.
Okay, so what about the window cranks and hand cranks?
So the window cranks and handles, we offer a variety of different window cranks, door handles. And in this case, we can't change the door handles because they're the pull lever style. But where we can make an upgrade is on the vent windows and window cranks, front and rear. We offer it all. We have short and long window cranks. You can use them however you like. We do have door handles if you do have the lever style, like these. We have a different variety of the ways we make them, and we always try to upgrade and improve the quality of our parts. These are Clayton style that match our brake and clutch arms and the gas pedal that we put in earlier. We're running through the last of the inventory since we made the upgrade to change it to a spline to where this handle can rotate, because what we do is put an insert, matches your factory window crank or regulator, hold it on with set screen, and you put your handle on. So from there, you can rotate or index. In our case, we've got this big spline. We can kind of handle that without the adjustability so it doesn't hurt us. But if you had an old school square style, you'd really need that adjustability. So we give you flexibility in how you mount it, where you mount it. There's left and right, and you can choose forward, back, orient it, wherever you want.
Now the installation process is going to be very easy, but to disassemble the old cranks, you're going to need a tool similar to this one. And you can get this at your local parts store. The set clip behind here, you're not going to be able to see. You're going to destroy the panel trying to get a screwdriver in there. You put this behind the crank, it's going to release that clip. You'll be able to pull the crank right off the spline.
Yeah, it's priceless to have that.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's a nice period for the interior.
Yeah, this was a lot of work. I'm glad the last thing we did was pretty simple.
Yeah, no kidding. It looks so good in there. The steering wheel, the cranks, the shifter, the pedals, everything's really cool. Now with this modern drivetrain, we need modern instrumentation, right?
Yeah, we've got a Dakota digital dash, but I want to make sure everything we've done now works, and we prove it. We put some miles on the car. We fix any of this old wire in here that we've got, those old fuses, before we, get into the electronics on it. But I'm really stoked about that.
Yeah, it's going to look good, work good, and really modernize and top off everything on the interior. Now, as far as those cranks go, it's really about preference, where you want to put them on the down motion all the way down, and where it fits on the up motion all the way closed. Now, if you were having a concourse car, you're going to have the original cranks. Those matter exactly where they're supposed to be per OEM. But in our case, it's all about preference.
Yeah, don't worry, we'll make yours right. when we
Thank
leave.
you. I just want to give you guys some work to do when you get it back.
Sam's Garage, presented by HEMSAW. We check back in with Sam and Doug at HEMSAW headquarters, where they're working on the new frame for the 57 Thunderbird. This episode, they're mocking up the rear half of the frame. The Coyote engine will be making plenty of horsepower, and the new rear end is beefed up to handle it.
Well, we're almost done with this frame build. Next, we're going to have to do the 4-link rear end with our 9-inch Ford housing that we got from Moser, 35 spline axles, LSD, Torsen for that matter. This is going to be reinforced housing.
Yes.
It's going to make a lot of horsepower, and that rear end is going to be able to handle it no problem. Can't wait to get the 4-link in.
Yeah, it's going to be an awful lot of fun. We're really fortunate to have Joe and Ron here doing the fabrication where we're helping them. Really, they're leading the show, and we're just giving them a hand. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You guys are going to learn an awful lot as we go ahead and get ready to get started.
All right, what we're doing now is mocking up the rear end. We got the 4-link bars in place. We want to make sure to put the shocks in a place where they're going to travel up and down, not too much of an angle because you're going to lose dampening that way. You want them pretty up and down, a little bit of a rake. So we're making sure that that is correct. When you weld the brackets onto the housing, do a couple tacks, make sure it's perfectly level, the plane up and down. The bracket on the rear, you want to make sure that the bottom of the bracket is level with the bottom of the frame, and you want to make sure that you got clearance for the top of the arc right there on the top bar of the bracket. On the housing, you want to make sure you have a 3-degree rake per Moser axle. That's the instruction, so that you have no vibration in the pinion with the drive shaft going down the road. Now, after you guys have set one side, to make it easy for yourself, make sure that before you go on to the other side, that your bars are the same length left to right. That'll put your axle in the middle. There is adjustability, but you want to make sure that when you're starting it, lower is going to be a little bit longer due to the positioning of the hardware. I did put a U on that side for the upper bar, knowing which one's on the upper and which one goes in the lower. That'll save you guys some time.
This came with their kit from Scott's, and what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make some changes on it to get our right shock angles on it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut the bar, we're going to mount it, we're going to mount the pieces onto it to mount the shock. And then after we have the shock mounted, then what we're going to take a look at is how is our Panhard rod going to mount. And it's always important that when your ride height's all the way down, this is level. Because as the rear end goes up and down, you just want to go through a small angle change, and that always keeps the rear end solidly underneath the car as you're going on down the road and making those turns.
Now, Justin from Scott's Hot Rods sent us a kit, 4-link kit for a factory 57 Thunderbird frame. That's why we're having to modify a few pieces, because we made our own frame.
Any of your suspension bolts, you want to go with a grade 8, not a grade 5. And most times people figure it out, the markings on top of the bolt. If there's 6 markings on her, that's going to be a grade 8 bolt. And we use a grade 5, it will be 3 marks.
Why?
And they always ask that question, and that's the manufacturer, the way they did that.
Yeah, and it's a tensile strength. You want something, a grade 8 is a lot stronger bolt than a grade 5.
The majority of washers are stamped out washer. The bottom and the top, there's the top and the bottom, as a lot of people don't know. The bottom side is going to be the flat side because it's stamped out that way, and the top is the radius, the rounded side. So always put your flat side down.
Doesn't that look awesome? 4-link, 9-inch rear end, 35-spline axles. This thing's gonna handle all the horsepower that we're gonna put to it and give you some peace of mind knowing that it's gonna be strong.
Absolutely. There's a few more little items we have to go ahead and finish up on this. We've got to put some stiffeners on into it. The panhard rod has got to go in. A lot of that stuff we're not going to do until we go ahead and get the body onto it so we know what our ride heights are. And Joe and Ron, thank you guys. We couldn't have done it without you. We really appreciate it. Fabulous job.
Having you guys experience onto this project has been really nice. Thank you so much for allowing us to work with you. It's been a great pleasure. I can't wait for you guys to come back to Sam's Garage next season and finish it up. Man, the more I drive this Cadillac and tune on the Hull EFI, the better it runs. Hopefully I'll get some better gas mileage too, but as heavy as this thing is, I don't think so. Anytime I'm working with a file, map, or tune on my computer, on any standalone, and I'm working with that current file, I never overwrite the file that I started with. In case I mess something up, get overzealous, and something doesn't go right, I can always refer back to the original map and upload it, start from scratch. Now this is a map, tune, or file that goes into the computer. This is not a tune-up. That consists of a cap, rotor, and wires, maybe even plugs in some cases. That's maintenance on a car. This is what runs any standalone computer. So it's a map, tune, or a file. You manipulate it, you upload it, you reflash it, and it runs the car. You make it faster, you make it slower. But that's what we call it, map, tune, or file. A tune-up consists of a cap, rotor, wires, and plugs, maintenance on a vehicle, all right?
Now back to more Sam's Garage. Sam's brother Bobby stops by the garage to help Sam install a new chrome front bumper and billet grille in the Chevy C10 truck. The new bumper and grille from Brothers Truck Parts are a perfect combination for that classic look. After cleaning up the surrounding trim pieces, the front end looks good as new.
That front end is absolutely ugly. The surround isn't bad, but it needs a lot of love because there's a big giant hole in the middle. So what am I gonna do? I'm going back to the 90s. I got this billet grille from Brothers Truck Parts. It's gonna be perfect for the front of this truck. It's gonna fit right here in this hole. The surrounds I can take and clean up. They're chrome plated from the factory. It looks like everything's in good shape there. And you know what, billet? This was definitely the 90s era, even into the 2000s, and it never really gets sold. On this truck, it's absolutely perfect. All right, so I got the bezels off, and really I took them off so I can clean them, give them a nice good polish, bring them back to life. The surrounds look good, couple dents here and there, but no big deal. So now I'm gonna put the grill in. It's very easy to install. Then I'm gonna put my clean products back on, finish off the front of this truck. Brothers Trucks makes it really easy, in our case, to put this billet grill on. We've got 5 holes right here on top, they're factory. Then we got the receivers right here on the grill. You got these speed nuts they provide along with stainless steel hardware so it doesn't rust on you. Put the nuts in their place right here before you put the grill in its place. On the bottom you'll see 2 captured nuts right there. Plastic, they're still in place from the factory. They're still good. We're gonna put 2 screws down there and that'll be nice and secure. 7 bolts holding this grill in. This outside trim is chrome plated plastic, so a good wipe down, some Windex or glass cleaner will work perfect in this case. The bezels, same thing, they're chrome plated. You can see how easily it gets cleaned up. So now I'm gonna clean everything up, put the bezels back in place, put a period on this front grille. It looks really nice. Fits perfect, like it came out of the factory like this. And this front grille and surround being all nice and new and polished will give him the motivation to do the rest of the truck. Look how nice that cleaned up. Now, if you guys were entering a car show and you really wanted to polish out your front end, 2 minutes to pull this off, 4 screws, pull it off, really clean it up, put it back on, you'll get extra points at the show. I got this nice locking 3/8 from Snap-on. Put this guy in here.
and it'll never come out on you. That way when you're working in tight places like this, the socket won't get stuck on the bolt or nut. Now what we've done, Bobby and I, we put the brackets on the truck, everything is loose. We got the bumper on the brackets. Now what we're gonna do is tighten everything, adjusting it at the same time. Man, that looks really nice, doesn't it?
It really does.
Those are two nice units from Brothers Truck Parts.
Nice.
Really changed the whole front of the car. What about that air dam?
Finishes it off nicely, I think.
Absolutely. And you know what, guys? We did have to go to the hardware store and pick up some carriage bolts because we wanted everything to be nice and new. And if you guys want your truck to look as good as this one, remember, Brothers Truck Parts, they are your #1 source for 1947 to 87 GMC and Chevy truck parts. Wow. What do we got to do next?
Rear bumper, I think, yeah?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Sam's Garage, presented by HEMSaw. Sam gets ready to assemble the bottom end of his HEMI Gen 3 engine using ARP bolts. The Gen 3 engine was introduced in 2003 and was in production all the way through 2016. Sam will be beefing up the lower end with new pistons, rods, cam, and crankshaft.
So you guys may have seen me build an LS engine, a short block Ford Windsor engine, and now I've got something special for you guys. I'm going to be building a Gen 3 HEMI engine. This used to belong to a customer of mine who was in the 2500 truck, had roughly 240,000 miles on it. I took it apart, everything looked good, so it was a great candidate for a rebuild. But I'm going to be adding boost to this engine. So when I do, I always want peace of mind that I go in back with ARP hardware. I'm going to use ARP main studs. I'm going to use them on the rod bolts and the head studs. But I'm not going to stop there because ARP makes accessory kits to where you can match the entire engine, dress it all up, and make it all look uniform. That's going to give you more points, more strength, and more peace of mind. So let's get started. Anytime you guys are going to replace the studs in the bottom end, you have to give the studs and the block to your machine shop and have them line hone it. And if you guys are going to be using ARP bolts on the rods, because the clamping force is different, another thing you have to do to give to your machine shop, give them the rods, have them resize it, make sure everything is perfectly round. When you go to assemble your motor, you have no problems. The bearings that I'm going to be using, they're going to be grooved. This is going to go on the block side. It's going to be marked upper, meaning upper. On the block, when you're looking at it, it's actually down. We're going to go in with these first. Now in some engines, the tab and the front bearing being #1 is going to be different than the others. You'll know that because either the tab will be different or it'll say #1 bearing on it. It's also very important that when you guys are installing your main bearings or rod bearings that the back of it is dry. There's no substance or liquid between the block and the bearing. You guys make sure that when you're dropping in the crankshaft that you stay away from the thrust bearings and you take a look and make sure they're in their place because they're gonna touch them, okay? The main caps are numbered and they have arrows. Very important. #1 being the front of the engine. I've got my caps down. I'm gonna walk them down by doing my first step torquing. That way I can put my side bolts in. Now, ARP does give you the torque specs in the box because they are going to be different than the torque to yield bolts that come with the motor. I've got my printout for the sequence. Now the ARP lube is very important because it's going to reduce any friction that may be occurring when you guys are assembling or torquing down your hardware. There's always friction that's created. The ARP hardware is going to reduce that friction down to almost zero, giving you proper torque readings and proper clamping force. When you apply it onto your hardware, you want to do anywhere there's going to be friction. Bottom of the nut, both sides of the washer, and the studs threads. Now that we got the main caps torqued down, we don't have the side bolts in yet because I want to check my end play, meaning if the thrust washers are going to be correct or not. Now when you got it all done, you want to take a hammer, you want to seat the crankshaft by seating the thrust bearings by banging the crankshaft in the back, and once in the front, that's going to seat the thrust bearings. Then you want to check out your specs. In our case, we're 2 to 11 thousandths end play. Put your dial indicator on the crankshaft, grab a flathead, and move that crankshaft back and forth. We are at 5 to 5.5 end play. All right, I'm done with the short block. I did a stock rebuild on this, and I strengthened everything up with ARP fasteners. I want to thank Ball Performance, All Par Performance, Chris at the Machine Shop, Miller Powder Coating, and Molly for supplying us the pistons and all the work that everyone did to make this happen. Now, ARP also has all the accessory bolts you see on the outside of the engine to make it look good as far as giving you the strength on the inside. Don't forget to join us next week when we finish up our HEMI build by installing the heads and checking out the ARP facility.